The Middle East policy bill.
Mr. President, I come to the Senate floor today with a sense of great disappointment. Disappointment in what my colleague, the senior senator from Florida, and the Republican leader have done with the bill before us today. Because they've taken a bill that had broad and bipartisan support, maybe unanimous bipartisan support, and tried to turn it into a political weapon. In the process, they are doing a great disservice to the American people and to all of us who value the tradition of strong bipartisan support for our friend and ally, Israel. Mr. President, I'm a co-sponsor of the original bill, S-2497, entitled the United States-Israel Security Assistance Authorization Act of 2018. It is a bill to codify the Memorandum of Understanding between the United States and Israel that was forged under President Obama and which provides Israel with $38 billion in security assistance over the next 10 years. This includes $33 billion in foreign military financing funds to Israel and $5 billion in missile defense assistance for the Iron Dome, David Sling, and Arrow 3. That's a lot of money when you consider the many priorities we have here at home and abroad. In fact, more than one-half of our entire global foreign military financing, the security assistance we provide to all of our partners and allies around the world, goes to Israel. And in my view, that's an important investment. It's an important investment to support our friend and our democratic ally, Israel, from the many threats it faces in a very dangerous neighborhood. Threats from Iran, from Syria, from Hezbollah, from Hamas, and many others. We need to make sure Israel maintains a strong military edge to defend itself. And that is why you have strong bipartisan support for that original bill. But then the Republican leader took a bill with broad bipartisan support for Israel and added a provision designed to retaliate against American citizens who expressed their disagreement with certain policies of the government of Israel by participating in certain boycott activities. Specifically, the senator from Florida added a provision that encourages states throughout the country to pass laws to punish American citizens who choose to protest the settlement policies of the government of Prime Minister Netanyahu by either boycotting products made in Israeli settlements in the West Bank or by not otherwise engaging in commerce with such settlements. Now, Mr. President, I want to make this clear. While I disagree with some of the policies adopted by the Netanyahu government in Israel, I do not in any way support a boycott as a method of expressing those disagreements. But let me be equally clear. I will fiercely defend the constitutional right of any American citizen to express his or her views in such a peaceful way, if they so choose. Just as I would support the right of every American to engage in other political boycotts, to peacefully express their political views without fear of being punished by their government. Senator from Florida and apparently the Republican leader want to use the power of the state to punish American citizens who disagree with them on this issue. It's right here in the bill. Let me read some of the relevant parts of the bill that's before us today. A state may adopt and enforce measures to restrict contracting by the state for goods and services with any entity that knowingly engages in boycott activity intended to limit commercial relations with Israel or persons doing business in Israel or Israeli-controlled territories for the purposes of imposing policy positions on the government of Israel. So how does this new provision encourage states to retaliate against American citizens? Well, it's pretty clear from that language. It encourages states to pass laws to deny citizens the right to bid on any state contract unless those citizens sign an oath stating that they do not or will not engage in any boycott of Israel, including any boycott related to the sale or purchase of goods or services from Israeli settlements in the West Bank. Think about that. Let's say you're an American citizen living in my state of Maryland. Let's say you own a computer consulting business and you happen to disagree with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu's government's policies of expanding settlements on the West Bank near the city of Bethlehem. And you want to express your opposition to that policy. And let's say you choose to protest that policy by deciding that you will not provide your services to businesses located in those settlements on the West Bank. If you did that, you would be prohibited by these state laws from bidding on a contract to provide computer consulting services to a Maryland state agency. Think about that. You may run the best computer consulting business in the state of Maryland, but if you don't sign an oath renouncing your right to engage in a boycott, you cannot win any contract with the state. In other words, even if you are the best, most qualified bidder, you would be disqualified from winning that state contract because of your peaceful political activity having nothing to do with your ability to fulfill the contract. Does that sound unconstitutional? Yes, it is blatantly unconstitutional. And guess what? That's what 2 federal courts have already concluded about state laws that already do what Senator Rubio's bill is proposing. I'm going to review those decisions in a moment. But before I do, let me respond to the very flimsy defense senior senator from Florida and others have offered to try to justify this effort to punish free expression. Mr. President, here's what Senator Rubio tweeted out. Quote, "Opposition to our bill isn't about free speech. Companies are free to boycott Israel, but state and local governments should be free to end contracts with companies that do," end quote. Mr. President, this reflects a profound misunderstanding of the First Amendment. It turns the First Amendment on its head. It's like saying to our fellow Americans, you're free to peacefully express yourselves however you want, but the government is then free to use the power of the state to punish you for doing so. You're free to express your political opinions, but if we don't like what you say, the state is free to pass laws to prevent you from doing any business with the state. Mr. President, that is state-sponsored discrimination against disfavored political expression. I would remind my colleagues that the First Amendment is not designed to protect government from its citizens. It is designed to protect citizens who may engage in unpopular speech from retaliation by the government. What if a state passed a law to penalize gun control advocates who boycotted stores that sold semi-automatic weapons? What if a state retaliated against anti-abortion activists who boycotted health clinics that provide abortion services? We would all agree that was blatantly unconstitutional. And so Senator Rubio's proposal and the proposal advanced by the Republican leader is a textbook example of why we have a First Amendment. I've heard others defend this measure by saying, quote, "It is simply a law to boycott the boycotters," unquote. It's a cute slogan, but again, shows a stunning ignorance of the First Amendment. Yes, any of us as individuals can always decide to boycott those whose boycotts we disagree with. Each of us as individuals is free to boycott those businesses who choose to boycott Israeli settlements in the West Bank. But that's not what this bill does. This bill calls upon states to use the power of the state, to use the power of government to punish peaceful political actions that we don't like. Again, patently unconstitutional. And Mr. President, that is the conclusion reached by two federal courts that struck down the kind of state laws that Senator Rubio and others seek to promote. In Kansas, a federal judge blocked the enforcement of a state law requiring any state contractor to submit a written certification that they are, quote, not currently engaged in a boycott of Israel, unquote. In the Kansas case, a woman who'd served as a public school math teacher for 9 years was barred from participating in a state-sponsored teacher training program because she refused to sign a certification that she wasn't participating in a boycott of Israel. The court found that the anti-boycott certification requirement was designed to suppress political speech and was, according to the court, quote, plainly unconstitutional, unquote. In his opinion, the judge wrote, quote, the Supreme Court has held that the First Amendment protects the right to participate in a boycott like the one punished.
You can watch the rest of this online, cspan.org. Take you back to the Senate about to gavel back in. There'll be continuing debate on a Middle East security bill, which makes changes to U.S. defense and security assistance in the Middle East and includes new sanctions against Syria and U.S. military assistance to Israel.